This week, how has it been for you? Now, many of us are facing some uncertainties, and you can tell just by our prayer list, which is very long, that there are many loved ones, many situations, many families who, well, maybe they are on the edge of something, and we do not know yet what that something is. Now, for me, this has been a very full week. Yesterday, we drove to Thomasville, and we saw our niece get married. And it was joyful to celebrate with her, but it was a path that some years ago we would not have seen it unfolding the way that it did, and we were grateful for that joy. The rest of the week for me has been full of meetings, planning with our shared church conference, charge conference. We're doing that with our missional network, so we had to meet to do some planning. I met with some others in the Catawba Valley District. And then on Thursday and Friday, I was in a workshop that I told you all about called a Hatchathon, hatching new missional ideas and sharing those with some folks from North Carolina and also from Virginia and Florida were at this conference. Now, this is something I think is going to be good for this church in particular, but also for the broader church. It's made for a really busy, busy week. And I know it may have been full for you all as well. Now, for some, this may be a season in life that brings, well, a little bit of stress and maybe some anxiousness. And part of that's just not knowing what is next. Now, as sometimes happens, it happens fairly often with me, I had a different sermon I was planning that I was working on for today. But I listened, I paused, and I listened with my heart, and I looked around and listened into the lives of those around me. And you know what? I think what we need this morning are some words of encouragement and hope. So, with that in mind, I want to share with you all the best sermon ever written. Now, no, they're not my words. They're from someone we all know and love and trust. But I pray that these words will be just the comfort and encouragement that you need. And while I'm sharing them with you, maybe you want to get out a pencil and paper or your phone where you can jot down some notes. And if there's a word or phrase that speaks specifically to you, I invite you to remember that in some way and maybe put it by your computer, your dining room table, on your refrigerator, wherever you will see it to be encouraged in the next week. I invite you now just to take a deep breath and get comfortable, but don't fall asleep. Stay awake, hear these words for the best sermon ever written. Now, when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on a mountainside and sat down. His disciples came to him, and he began to teach them. He said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Now, friends, did any of those words or phrases, did they stick out at you? Did you recognize the Sermon on the Mount? It is the best sermon ever written. For me, one phrase that stuck out is that you are the light of the world. And when it talks about a city on a hill, I think about this church on a hill and what it is and what it means as a beacon to this community. Now, I read from the NIV, which is a fairly traditional translation of these words from Jesus. But this passage, it is so familiar. It's kind of like hearing the Lord's Prayer, which we say every Sunday, or the 23rd Psalm, which many of us can almost or maybe could say it by heart. We hear the words, but do we really think about what they mean? So this morning, I'm turning to another translation, one I don't use all that often. It has some commentary built into it, but it also takes these very familiar words and it looks at them from a particular viewpoint, a different perspective, and I think that might be helpful for us this morning. So, here is the greatest sermon ever written, as translated by Eugene Peterson in The Message, which he did some 30 or so years ago. When Jesus saw his ministry drawing huge crowds, he climbed a hillside. Those who were apprenticed to him, the committed, climbed with him. Arriving at a quiet place, he sat down, and he taught his climbing companions, and this is what he said. And friends, I encourage you again, listen for words or phrases that stick out to you for whatever reason as we go on. And he said, "You're blessed when you're at the end of your rope. With less of you, there is more of God and his rule. You're blessed when you feel you've lost what is most dear to you. Only then can you be embraced by the one most dear to you. You're blessed when you're content with just who you are. No more, no less. That's the moment you find yourselves proud owners of everything that can't be bought. You're blessed when you've worked up a good appetite for God. He's food and drink in the best meal you'll ever eat. You're blessed when you care. And at the moment of being careful, you find yourselves cared for. You're blessed when you get your inside world, your mind and your heart put right. Then you can see God in the outside world. You're blessed when you can show people how to cooperate instead of compete or fight. That's when you discover who you really are and your place in God's family. You're blessed when your commitment to God provokes persecution. The persecution drives you even deeper into God's kingdom. Not only that, count yourself blessed every time people put you down or throw you out or speak lies about you to discredit me. What it means is that the truth is too close for comfort, and they are uncomfortable. You can be glad when that happens. Give a cheer, even, for though they don't like it, I do, and all heaven applauds. And know that you are in good company. My prophets and witnesses have always gotten into this kind of trouble. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here to be the salt seasoning that brings out the God flavors of this earth. And if you lose your saltiness, how will people taste godliness? You've lost your usefulness and will end up in the garbage. Here's another way to put it. You're here to be light, bringing out the God colors in the world. God is not a secret to be kept. We're going public with this, as public as a city on a hill. If I make you light bearers, you don't think I'm going to hide you under a bucket, do you? I'm putting you on a light stand. Now that I've put you there on a hilltop, on a light stand, shine, keep open house, be generous with your lives. By opening up to others, you'll prompt people to open up with God, this generous Father in heaven. So any of these words, if you're here in the congregation or if you're online, are any of these words speaking to you this morning? You can share them out loud if you'd like. I want you to remember these words, and maybe this week you'll take some time to look up this passage from Mark 5 again and read it in several translations. As you read and reread these words that were written from Jesus for people to hear, and they're written for people to hear then at his time, and they're written for us now. And so no matter the season of life that lies in front of you, remember that you are among the people that Jesus called blessed.